Hi, Joanna.
Hey Jordan, how's it going?
Good, thanks. I assume someone will give us a cue when we're ready to go.
I hope so. Oh wait, I see. Yes, he said we're live. You can start. Okay,
Wonderful.
we can.
Go for it.
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's an honor to speak about this remarkable progress driven by the Global Partnership for AI and what lies ahead for our organization. Today, we meet in our first public gathering since the GPAI Multi-Stakeholder Expert Plenary, which was last December already. And since that time, and thanks to our team, our partners, working groups, and the Centers for Excellence in Montreal and Paris, we've accomplished some pretty remarkable things, which we are going to preview for all of you today. Moreover, we've connected the advice of world-leading experts with like-minded governments willing to take decisive action to ensure AI is developed and used responsibly and that it preserves human rights and privacy. GPAI, as you know, is still a new organization, and in many ways, we're still finding our footing. We're growing our base of experts, partners, and countries. Our unique value stems from the powerful synergies we build by acting as a global reference point for responsible AI. Just last month, G7 countries and world leaders pledged to build on GPAI's work by reinforcing our mandate to drive forward an open and human-centric approach to artificial intelligence. My inspiration for joining GPAI is the belief that AI should be magnanimous and never magnify or exacerbate division and inequality in society. And as its use grows exponentially, we have a window of opportunity to confront potential threats and implement frameworks for responsible development and for the benefit of all. AI that reflects the values that make us human: empathy, intuition, compassion, and kindness, just to name a few. Now, only when we ensure that AI and advanced technology development is in accordance with these values will we be able to rise to the challenges we've set for ourselves at the Global Partnership for AI. Our collaborative work is a prominent reminder of what is possible when we as a global community ethically address the significant challenges of our time. That is why we must keep the OECD values of human rights, democracy, inclusion, diversity, and sustainability at the heart of all that we do, to leverage AI responsibly and to help solve some of the world's most pressing problems. And of course, to create more opportunities for all in the process. I'm looking forward to hosting the Q&A today with leaders from our 5 working groups to discuss the progress that's been made and our plans for the future. But before that, let me please hand it over to my co-chair and partner in this effort, Jordan Zed.
Thanks very much, Joanna. It's a real pleasure to be on this adventure with you and everyone around the world who's been with us shaping this brand new initiative. It's been incredibly gratifying to see the progress in such a short period of time. And really, the objective here today is to promote and better understand the progress that's been achieved over the last several months. And really, it comes down to the experts from around the world, the extraordinary dedication that they've provided across 5 thematic areas, in addition to their incredibly busy work schedules already, that they have really sought to advance collectively our desire to better shape and understand the use and development of AI in a responsible manner. So those 5 tables, just as a quick reminder for those who are perhaps a little less familiar, are responsible AI, pandemic response, data governance, future of work, and innovation and commercialization. And really, over the period of this past year during the pandemic, as you all know, and as we've all done collectively, we've all worked to try to adapt as quickly as possible. And it's extraordinary to see the work that has been conducted and advanced across those 5 tables in a very short period of time during this pandemic. And really what we've begun to see already, and I hope we'll be able to shed more light on this today, is to translate a lot of these ideas at a fairly high level into tangible, actionable projects on crucial, pressing projects and topics that are of concern to all of us. For example, our responsible AI groups working to develop a global AI adoption strategy for climate action and biodiversity preservation. Our data governance group is supporting the creation of real world data trusts that enable data sharing for social benefit. And I know that these are topics that are very important regardless of where we find ourselves in the world. As a result of the hard work and dedication of our experts, these and other GPAI projects have great potential, and we really hope that we'll be able to see real world impacts in the AI ecosystem over the coming months and year. For myself and Joanna as co-chairs of the GPAI Steering Committee, our role will be to equip the working groups with the tools they need to advance these ambitious projects. We will also have an important responsibility in ensuring that we take into consideration the diverse experiences, perspectives, and expertise that may not yet be represented within GPAI. And that's why today is so important. It's really about identifying the partnerships that are, of course, building within the GPAI membership, but that also can and must extend beyond GPAI. We look forward to the many collaborations that will stem from today with partners from around the world and are already eager to implement GPAI's practical projects and findings in the places they are most needed. And so now I'm absolutely delighted to introduce my minister, the Honourable François-Philippe Champagne, Canada's Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, who as lead chair of GPAI will be providing a few opening remarks. Monsieur le Ministre, à vous.
Merci, Jordan. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, everyone. You're quite right. And Joanna, it's nice to see you. I'm fresh out of chairing the GPAI Mid-Year Council meeting, and I must say to report, this was a very constructive meeting, very fruitful, very engaging, forward-looking alignment on the next steps and the way forward. We had 21 countries and organizations represented, a good geographic distribution, and I would, first of all, I just want to thank the work of Joanna and Jordan as co-chair and the steering committee and the group of experts. You know, as ministers and representatives of different organizations, you're providing the knowledge, you're providing the insight in order to guide us in these common principles. And you mentioned a number of them, Joanna, which resonated not only with me, but also with colleagues that I've heard this morning around human rights, around sustainability, diversity, inclusion, gender equality, making sure that AI is at the service of the people. And Jordan, when you talk about tangible, actionable projects, that certainly resonated. So if I might want to give you a bit of a summary of what we did this morning, obviously I updated with you all the GPAI projects, the council. We all look at the vision and forward-looking priorities. I'm happy to report to all of you, and won't come as a surprise, but your recommendations were endorsed by the council in terms of the priorities that have been established for 2022, and there was broad consensus and support around the fight against climate change, which everyone recognized is something that we all need to pay a lot of attention, a very important priority, and I think it's right to put it first. The second one was around health and life sciences, including combating COVID-19. Obviously, that's the other challenge, global challenge that is facing the world today, and how we can have more pandemic preparedness and how can AI play a role in that. And thirdly, the impact of AI on human rights, very important, including on gender equality and inclusiveness, factoring AI's potential to impact those with disabilities. So these three were certainly the cornerstone of what was discussed this morning. Others were raised, which will inform the steering committee and the good work you're doing. But let me just reflect on some of the, and there's no way you can do justice as chair to all the comments that were brought forward, but some referred to as issues around agile governance, making sure that we are looking at practical tools that we inform governments by your work, that you inform us as to the theory and the practice. Some refer to making sure we support the Sustainable Development Goals. The issue of trust came often also in our discussion. Someone referred to green algorithm as well, which I thought was interesting. Closer collaboration, making sure that we gather a larger group, diversity also in regional participants in our group, and that we have pilot projects and tangible benefits coming out of that. All of the things that you have already been working on as a group of experts. And again, everyone recognized and appreciated deeply the work that has been doing and the work of the steering committee to bring these ideas forward and to make sure you provide us with the best recommendation in order to go forward. So I think there's a lot on GPAI's plate, a lot that people are looking forward for your work. I am grateful for the support you have been providing us. This is very timely. I think citizens are looking at us, are looking at you to provide best-in-class advice when it comes to the future, and the work has been complimented for what you have achieved, but also very much looking forward, and with the upcoming co-chair in November, which will be France, to pursue the good work that's been done so far. So with that, I just want to use that opportunity to thank you on behalf of Canada, obviously, and my colleagues, but also to commend you for providing the world with the insight that we need. So I would finish and say, let's seize the moment. I think that the world is ready for that, and your advice. Let's be ambitious in how we're looking at the future together, and let's make sure that we have AI to serve the people across the world. So with that, Joanna and Jordan, I will turn over to you, and I will stay with you all for a few more minutes, and then we'll let you continue the good work that you've been doing. But back to you, Jordan or Joanna.
Great. Thank you very much, Minister. Thanks for your leadership and for your ambition and your energy. They're very much appreciated, especially in an initiative that's still in its early days. So thank you very, very much. As co-chair of the GPAI Steering Committee, I also echo your feeling of pride in our leadership collectively in advancing such important, timely work. Before we get underway with today's panel discussion with the representatives of our GPAI Working Group, we'd like to offer you a short presentation that will bring you up to speed on some of our work, the exciting practical projects that we've selected in 2021. The following video will give you an opportunity to learn more about how our world-leading experts in our working groups will direct their incredible knowledge and expertise to help GPAI to bridge the gap between theory and practice on the responsible use and development of AI. So without further ado, a big thanks to our colleagues in the Montreal Centre of Expertise for putting this together for us. Here are the projects for 2021.
These are the 10 important and ambitious projects that have been presented by the 5 working groups for the 2021 work plan of the Global Partnership on AI. A responsible AI strategy for the environment. The combined fight against climate change and preservation of biodiversity represents one of the most pressing challenges humanity is facing. All GPAI member countries have put this at the top of their agenda and have taken strong commitments, especially through the Paris Agreement signed in 2015. Accordingly, this project aims to develop a global responsible AI adoption strategy for climate action and biodiversity preservation. The short-term objective of this project is to prepare an action-oriented roadmap on the intersections between responsible AI and climate action to be disseminated ahead of the COP26 in Glasgow. The Responsible AI Working Group will also coordinate with other GPAI working groups to bring relevant climate action and biodiversity preservation-related use cases in their work. For 2022 and beyond, the Responsible AI Working Group will aim to establish other cooperation channels and further develop its responsible AI adoption strategy. Responsible AI for Social Media Governance. While the social media platform's influence on the information flows in society is expanding, there are growing concerns about the level of misuse, which can be harmful by propagating disinformation, extremism, violence, and many forms of harassment and abuse. There is also a growing consensus that governments should review the effectiveness of current regulations on the influence of social media platforms on the dynamics of public discourse, so these processes are undertaken democratically and systematically, rather than solely by private companies. The objective of this project is to identify a set of guidelines and techniques that governments could adopt to safely ask a set of agreed questions and measurements about the effects of social media recommender systems without infringing people's rights to privacy, freedom of expression, and fair democratic processes, and without infringing companies' intellectual property. The main longer-term outcomes of the project are formal agreement with the selected social media platform and the government of the selected country for implementation of the fact-finding exercise. A fact-finding exercise that is actually conducted and delivers proposals to inform governments about specific mechanisms that could operate within the companies that are studied. AI for public domain drug discovery. Current and future needs of public health, such as those concerning infectious diseases and pandemics, are often unmet by current drug discovery technologies and ecosystems due to rising costs and market failures. At the same time, the use of AI is a huge opportunity to speed up and reduce those costs, but it would be much more likely to succeed and would require less government funds in an open science and data-sharing governance framework. The objective of this project is to develop a set of recommendations for member countries and the international community in general to create an enabling international environment for open AI research towards the development of new drugs or the repurposing of existing ones to address public health challenges. The first step towards this objective will be to create a set of recommendations synthesized from interviewing and collecting feedback from a mix of relevant experts from different fields, such as AI, health, public policy, and IP, to be published. AI-powered immediate response to pandemics. In 2020, an exploratory report was prepared for the AI and Pandemic Response Subgroup, containing a catalog of AI initiatives developed and used in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. In light of the pandemic further developing and changing over the last year and into 2021, these initiatives need to be re-evaluated, including scalability and considerations of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on developing countries as the developed world slowly reopens following lockdowns and vaccination campaigns. This project aims to directly support impactful and practical AI initiatives to help in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The short-term outputs of the project are to create and update the COVID-19 AI initiatives catalog to transform it into a living repository of AI initiatives for pandemic response. AI at Work Observation Platform. In 2020, the Future of Work Working Group focused its efforts on analyzing real AI use cases at the workplace. It developed a questionnaire that examines the process of AI systems social integration in companies. A catalog of more than 80 real use cases was collected from nearly 10 countries. First analyses were published in the report of the 2020 Montreal Summit. This project would further improve the use case collection process with a hybrid approach: an online survey followed by a short interview to get more in-depth responses. Outputs of the project are setting up a students' community as a team of interviewers comprised of student researchers together with their professors, backed by an expert from the working group across various GPAI members. Redefining the questionnaire by integrating questions from the committees on training and human-machine collaboration, identifying the use case scenarios of the catalog, and designing a coherent solution. specifying the end-user platform of the AI Observatory. By the second quarter of 2022, the working group is planning to develop the proof of concept of the AI Observatory in an end-to-end process, and scale up the observatory to a digital platform. Fair work for AI. A lot of work and studies have been done on fair working conditions around AI. The pathway from high-level principles to enforceable regulation around the impact of AI on working conditions has not been clearly defined. The focus on ethics can even be used as a way of getting around regulation, especially when technology companies opt for voluntary codes of practice that they have shaped themselves. Currently, all existing AI ethics guidelines are non-binding. The project's aim is to determine AI best practices with regard to working conditions. This will entail a set of AI fair work principles and operationalizable processes through which they can be applied, measured, and evaluated in any workplace. The short-term outputs of the project are a review and synthesis of existing AI principles, policies, and benchmarks, a publicly shared working document of principles and processes that balance meaningful standards of fair work with implementability. The main longer-term outcomes of the project are a report on AI fair work principles and processes released in 4 languages for maximum global impact, a virtual launch event that connects the release to key actors in industry, the labor movement, and government, case studies of the impact of the adoption of the principles by 5 organizations in 2022. Broad adoption of AI by SMEs. Small-medium enterprises, nonprofit organizations, and government-funded institutions typically employ 80% of a country's workforce. However, these organizations usually have low AI maturity, as they often lack the resources, skills, data, or IT infrastructure to develop and adopt AI solutions. These organizations must be supported now to adopt AI so that they can continue to deliver their missions and objectives and that their workforce will continue to be economically relevant. The aim of the project is to create a bank of shareable resources web portal to support the following initiatives: outreach materials and activities to engage AI-unaware and AI-aware enterprises, a catalog of AI solutions by industry verticals and functions, a service to match AI-unaware and AI-aware consumers to AI solution providers based on the consumer's industry verticals and business activities. The short-term objectives of this project are: create a template of the portal and shared resources and activities to engage organizations. This template will be made available to governments to adapt to their reality. A curated catalog of solutions by industry verticals and functions. A matching service to recommend AI solution providers to organizations. By the end of 2022, this project aims to conduct field tests of the portal on existing initiatives from fellow GPAI members and develop an AI readiness index for AI consumers and a quality assessment for AI solution providers that could be listed on the portal. Protecting AI innovation, intellectual property. Both the development and use of AI technologies have the potential to be hindered by several identified challenges, such as how to efficiently protect investment through intellectual property (IP) protection. How can data be protected? What kind of intellectual property rights will be created? And how will ownership of such IP be organized? In meeting such challenges, a business must understand how IP rights are handled in different situations and across different jurisdictions and set an IP management strategy. The main objective of the project is to achieve a deeper understanding of the challenges that organizations face in the area of IP as it relates to AI. The short-term objectives are to publish the first version of the GPAI IP Primer and distribute it to GPAI members, and to conduct 6 case studies on how businesses are handling IP risks regarding AI-related innovations and commercialization. Some of the long-term objectives for this project are to incorporate implications of EU Data Governance Act, Digital Marked Act, Database, and Machine Directive. To update the GPAI IP Primer based on the case studies and disseminate it to a wider audience. Publish a GPAI IP expert document. Explore a pattern of clauses of framework data access, sharing, and flows for implementing it to international trade agreements. And produce key recommendations for harmonization of patent rules. Enabling data sharing for social benefit through data trusts. Effective data stewardship is essential for a variety of public policy goals and for realizing the wider economic value of data. Data trusts are a promising tool to empower individuals and communities. However, important challenges must be addressed to establish them. This project will support the creation of real-world data trusts that enable data sharing for social benefit. It will support new institutions that empower individuals and communities to enact their data rights, ensuring that data sharing activities reflect the diverse interests of all in society. The short-term outputs of the project include a GPAI consensus statement on tenets of a data trust, setting out the role of these data institutions and the principles or core attributes that inform their ways of working. An initial survey of existing data institutions, exploring how different efforts have implemented core features of a data trust. A scoping review of current legal frameworks for the development of data trusts across jurisdictions, identifying areas of uncertainty or need. Create a scoped pilot data trust that could be implemented through a future partnership or from working group collaborations. Advancing research and practice on data justice. This project aims to fill a gap in data justice research and practice that provides a frame to help practitioners and users to move beyond understanding data governance narrowly as a compliance matter of individualized privacy or ethical design. The project seeks to include considerations of equity and justice in terms of access to and visibility and representation in data used in the development of AI/ML systems. The project aims to provide an annotated bibliography and critical review of the literature and the development of preliminary guides that will document key questions that our target audiences should be asking based on an assessment of the critical review of the literature and practice. The short-term outputs of the project would include the state-of-the-art research assessment presented as an ongoing research agenda, the preliminary guidance for developer communities, policymakers, and communities, and individuals marginalized by AI/ML systems. Pilot partners announced to test, refine, and validate guidance in 2022. This is only a brief summary of the first 10 projects undertaken by the Global Partnership on AI. If you're interested in learning more about these projects and GPAI, or to partner with us, visit our website at gpai.ai.
Wow, it's incredibly powerful and inspiring to see all the GPAI work plan projects come together in such a short period of time. And when you think about, there's 150 experts in the multi-stakeholder plenary group, and all of them are dedicating their time outside of their daily work, their research, their jobs to focus on these very important problems. And the progress made in 12 months is just incredibly impressive. I think now the most important thing is to hear directly from the leaders of these groups, the work groups, firsthand about their projects. And we're honored to be joined today by Alice O, who's the co-chair of the AI Pandemic Response Working Group. We have Raja Shatila, who's the co-chair of the Responsible AI Working Group. Dewey Murdoch, who is co-leading the Advancing Research and Practice on Data Justice, which is a project of the Data Governance Work Group. We have Matthias Pessner, who's the co-chair of the Future of Work, and Jean-Francois Guénet, who is the co-chair of the Innovation and Commercialization Work Group. I want to thank you all for lending your time to join us today and your expertise in leading these groups. and leading our discussion today. It's been a real pleasure for me to witness firsthand the commitment and investment that you and all of your colleagues have made to shaping these projects, and the ones that have been approved by the Council today. So congratulations, these are the 10 approved projects by the Council. But before we begin, I'd like to invite all those who are watching live on the streaming platform to use the chat function if you want to ask a question of our leading experts. And I will do my best. The moderator is going to feed me the questions, and I'll do my best to fit them in before we run out of time. So thank you all for that. So in terms of the questions for the panelists, in line with GPAI's mandate and guidance from the steering committee, all the projects that have been presented really met these critical qualitative components of scalability, practicality, I should say. They had to be high impact and, potentially very ambitious projects. But also one of the other components is about collaboration with other international AI-focused organizations. I thought I would start out today's conversation with asking each of you, going around the panel and asking each of you how the work that you're doing sort of connects with or somehow is concentric with the circles of other international organizations. And Matthias, I think you're the first person I see on my screen, so I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, maybe I can report about our project on developing AI principles for fair work. And it's very obvious that we need other international collaborators here for that project. And we will start from the OECD's principles on AI, and we will try to make them more concrete and more enforceable in practice. And therefore, OECD will be a logical first external partner. But in order to develop these principles, we want to start a tripartite dialogue. That means we want to have employers, workers, and governments on the table. And for that, it seems very obvious to work together with the International Labour Organization. This is a United Nations organization where employers, workers, and governments come together to work on labor standards and policies. And then starting from that, we also want to collaborate with international unions, like the Uni Global Union and other federations, but also with international research institutes working in that field, and of course also the intergovernmental organizations like, for example, OECD.
I think it is really important. Sorry, go ahead.
Me, go ahead.
No, I was just going to
I just wanted to say that.
There's a nice delay. We'll have to manage that.
Undertaking problems, yeah. Yeah. First of all, we need to bring policy-making perspectives and so forth to have a holistic discussion about fair principles, principles for fair work. And on the other hand, we really need those institutions to have the utmost impact worldwide when it comes to bringing these principles to practice.
Thank you. As I was mentioning, there is an emergence of a lot of new international organizations, plus existing, governance and government organizations, recognizing the importance of the synergies and working together to come up with the best practices in the interest of, in this case, future work. I was going to ask the other panelists if they wanted to add anything. Alice, did you have anything to add around cooperation with your group, collaboration with the AI and Pandemic Response Group?
Yeah, so we are doing two projects. One is somewhat shorter term and the other is somewhat longer term. So the immediate response project is about the initiatives that are going on right now, that are being developed and used right now to deal with the current pandemic. that involves cooperation with OECD and OECD specifically about how they are dealing with the pandemic response. And the longer term project, which is more about drug discovery for public health, we're collaborating with people from WHO and DNDi, which stands for Drugs for Neglected Diseases. And so those organizations are, of course, they have expertise in the public health domain, but what we can add from the GPAI perspective is the AI expertise. So while those WHO and DNDi folks and other organizations also try to, work with AI experts, but they don't really have, or they are, we can actually add a little bit more to that, and we can collaborate together for better solutions.
Thanks, Alice. And I know you and your team have been working on ideas around repurposing drugs, as well as the discovery and development of new drugs for neglected diseases, in this case, the pandemic response.
Yes.
Okay, so I think, I don't know, Raja, did you want to add anything around from your group?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Indeed, let me take one example, which is one of our projects about responsible AI for social media governance. Obviously, again, the OECD is playing a major central role along all the work that is ongoing within GPAI. Social media governance is something that, of course, OECD is also active on, and so we have the intention and more, because they are participating in this group, to collaborate with the OECD Committee on Digital Economic Policy to join our work and join our experience and initiative. But also because social media is so wide interest, national governments also can be specifically interested and involved, as well as, of course, some social media companies. As much we are also interested and committed to the involvement of locally situated multi-stakeholder and civil society, we would also co-develop some work with local communities who are impacted. So there is a wide potential for cooperation, again, the OECD being one of the central organizations there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly couldn't agree more. You have leading social media companies that transcend boundaries, and you almost need to apply the same governance that you would in terms of countries themselves. But in this case, it's difficult for smaller countries and other organizations working for victims, for instance, to have any kind of power and sway with the large organizations. So it's good to have a coordinated effort. And I think it's really exciting to hear that you're crossing all these virtual boundaries and working with the multi-stakeholders around social media governance. I think the next person, I guess, would be Jean-Francois. Do you want to add anything around the work group's doing?
Happy to go next. So from an innovation and commercialization perspective, it is critical that we have strong collaboration with government institutions and other groups around the world. For us to be effective, we need to help reduce the risk of adopting artificial intelligence. We need to also provide tools that help build trust between a service provider and organization that can benefit from this technology. And what we've been seeing, and you can see this through the projects that the group is currently working on, there's a certain population of organization, mostly SMEs, that haven't been benefiting from the returns the increased productivity and all the benefits that this technology can bring. And a lot of our efforts are to illustrate and provide tools to governments to be able to act along these lines. So there's already some programs. It's not even in each country, but there's some activities in terms of funding and platform that increase discoverability. But really, our work here will be to provide more options, more visibility and transparency on what make these things work, and then therefore we depend on collaboration for them to then use this knowledge and help their different market to be successful.
Yeah, that's it's really important work and looking out for SMEs. This is a challenging area to adapt to AI, whether it's impacting your business practices or whether you need to adopt it, and the ability to support them, in an organized effort, and then provide that as a framework for countries to implement and to leverage is really important. So that's fantastic. We're on the theme of collaboration here today. Dewey, did you want to add anything about your project?
Sure, I'll briefly add in just 2 comments about the Data Governance Working Group. As you know, the Data Governance Working Group is the lifeblood of it is collaboration. We cannot do what we're doing without working with other organizations within GPAI, but also particularly organizations outside of GPAI. One of our projects, which I think is a really good example of this, is our work to exploring data trusts as a means for data sharing in particular areas of social benefits such as climate change or health. There's a lot of work that's necessary to be able to establish data trusts, and there's a lot of consensus that needs to be built to be able to make sure we can do this. So we have to create consensus about what core features they have, how they function across jurisdictions or borders, how to establish the long-term financial stability of a data trust, technical architectures, mechanisms for accountability. All of these require stakeholders from across industries and sectors to be able to give input. We've been engaging with a lot of them in this project so far, but there's a lot of opening. So this is, for those who are listening, this is a great time to reach out, to share, this is your vision, to see, the constraints that your organization might see that others might miss. And the International Center for Expertise in Montreal on Artificial Intelligence is an excellent point of contact for sharing these insights. With Jacques, Rajat, and Heather are really good points of contact there. So I guess in this case, what I'm offering is, while we have a number of, many of the same organizations that have talked about, like OECD and others, but we're looking to expand this network, and this is really an opportunity. And the other projects that we're working on, likewise, need this engagement to be able to succeed.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better, Dewey. And the other theme around collaboration and the other importance is this, that many times the remits of the working groups cross over into other working groups. So I thought it would be interesting for those listening to the live stream to hear about how the various working groups are coordinating efforts and cooperating to really raise the level and to, be coordinated in terms of delivery of these projects. So I think Raja, you were going to speak a bit about some of the projects that you are working on that cross over into other work groups and how you guys are leveraging that and ensuring that we get the best possible output from the projects.
Yes, thank you again. Sure. Actually, the other project that you are working on is related to climate change and biodiversity preservation. And this, of course, is a major challenge today. As everyone knows, I don't need to actually insist on this. You all heard the news about what's going on in Western Canada. And we think that GPAI is very well positioned to actually work and develop on this project globally. It's because of the importance of the working groups and because, of course, of the connections to other partnership. For example, just to speak about our external partnership, we have, of course, UNEP and IPCC and the COP Secretariat, and we intend in this project to present our first findings to the COP26 in Glasgow. But within GPAI, this project actually is co-led by myself from the Responsible AI Working Group and Nicola Miaili, who is from the Data Governance Working Group. So this is a very explicit example of how two different working groups can actually team together to work on a project through their interest. And as it has been just said, data governance is really key in this project and other projects. So, but it's not only in cooperation with the data governance working group, because other groups can have very interesting use cases. And for example, in innovation and commercialization, for example, data trust pilots with the data governance working group, but also startups and companies who are working on issues related to climate change. The pandemic prevention also is important because we have issues related to biodiversity related to our interest. So I would say it's really a very wide potential of cooperation among the working groups, but actively today we are already very much committed and working with the data governance working group. So and again, it's very important and so productive to team together to work on those issues.
Well, thank you, Raja. And I mean, while we're on data governance, I wondered if you had anything else you wanted to add around your sort of cross-team collaboration. I think it'd be good to hear.
No, I'd be glad to share some thoughts on this. You've already heard a little bit, but let me just start with just a personal observation about the Global Partnership on AI. What I have found personally is this engagement with a mix of technical, policy, business, legal expertise has really created a very rich environment for thinking through the problems, figuring out how to prioritize which ones are the most important. So we've seen this obviously as a microcosm in the Data Governance Working Group, which has been really superbly organized. However, now we are, as we just heard, reaching out to other groups, and this is really quite an exciting opportunity. So enthusiasm is being expressed on my part. Let me go into some specifics. So as you're aware, data governance cuts across multiple working groups. It's really hard to have a responsible AI without good data governance. Many data governance issues are played out in the balancing of the interests of public and private sector and individuals and communities, and which affect innovation and commercialization. So you see how data can factor in, especially how AI is constructed, how it learns its capabilities currently. So you already heard about Nicolas Mier work with the Responsible AI. So I won't go into that in addition. But that's a really exciting collaboration. Kim McGrail has been contributing to the Pandemic Response Working Group's subgroup on drug discovery and open science. This kind of collaboration is quite exciting. We've also identified experts who are ready to participate in other projects, like those mentioned above, but also the Responsible AI Working Group, social media subgroup, and the Innovation and Commercialization Working Group project on intellectual property. Lots of really interesting overlaps there in the area of intellectual property, as well as the others. This cross-pollination, I guess, is not only good for GPAI, but it's really helpful for establishing a stronger alignment across the working groups. And then the experts, a lot of us have other passions other than just data governance, and it allows us to express those passions and work in areas that we're really excited about. So that keeps the energy flowing, if you may. So lots of things to go in, but I think I'll just leave it right there. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point, and it also elevates the importance of the centers for expertise, like in the service they play of bridging the gap and connecting all of the working groups and ensuring that there's synergies and there's no overlap and that everyone's supporting each other in their projects. I think that's really important. And I think those who are on the phone or on the video may not know about that much about the Centers for Expertise, but it's a really powerful coordinating function that really helps elevate the projects and coordinate cooperation and collaboration. Okay, let's see. As Alice or Matthias or Jean-Francois, any other comments you want to add around working with other synergies of working with other groups?
Yeah, let me just add. I mean, Raja and Dewey have already explained pretty well how data governance and responsible AI and all these working groups working together would produce the optimal, the best solution. From the pandemic response point of view, one thing that's really important for us is is open science, as Dewey has also mentioned, but also scalability and transferability of the solutions that we're looking at. So these response, solutions to the pandemic are they're usually developed in the more developed countries, but they now need to be deployed, or at least thought about being deployed all around the world. And data is really important there, and different governments around the world have different policies or perspectives of open science and sharing data. And data from one region may not transfer over to another region for this pandemic and other diseases as well. So I think that's where we have a really a big challenge ahead of us, but working together, hopefully, with all the working groups, all these really wonderful experts in different areas, from AI to IP to governance and policy, we really do need to work together to combat this challenge the best as we can.
I think you raise a really good point. You develop these projects, and how do you ensure that these best practices can be rolled out and scaled globally and effectively, especially in times of crisis like the pandemic at the moment. So I think that that's a really important challenge and one to keep in mind as we work together here and continue. So I guess Jean-Francois, did you want to add anything? Or Matthias, I see.
Yeah, I just want to briefly summarize on the other project we are doing in the working group on the future of work. It's called the Observation Platform of AI at the Workplace, and in that project we are collecting AI cases, how AI solutions are today used at the workplace in the different companies. And this project has been started from the very beginning as a platform for collaboration between the working groups, because the data we're collecting here can be used by other working groups. For example, data governance is a topic that might be very interesting in the working environment. Also, responsible AI, also commercialization or innovation when it comes to use of AI in SMEs. So what we want to provide is a pool of data, of insights, how AI is currently used, and this data shall be provided to the public, but also especially to the other working groups. And at the moment, we are refining our surveys, our questionnaires, to get in other questions of skills needed and of human robot collaboration and these kinds of things. But we are very open also to other questions when, for example, other working groups have specific questions we should add into the interviews, like, for example, how to deal with the personal data and this kind of stuff. So I think this might be a good example of how we can provide something in the first phase of the whole GPAI initiative that can be used collectively from all the different working groups.
Yeah, those are really valuable points. Jean-Francois, did you want to add anything from your group's perspective?
I mean, it's been mentioned already, so no, I think we've covered it all.
I think the one thing I hear with all of these comments is the importance of experts. And one of the things we heard from the working groups was this call for, like, how do you incorporate, as you develop your work, you realize you may need experts in other areas, and how do we bring them on board into the working group? So I wanted to talk for a moment about the process of self-nominating, experts self-nominating. And we're going to open up on July 15th through August 24th the opportunity for interested candidates or those in which you may have come across in your work that you'd like to self-nominate. All they have to do is they have to upload a CV, a statement of interest, and a reference letter and a little bit about their background. And just to make sure that we, for those who are listening to the live stream, and also for all of you who have been working inside the working groups, there is this opportunity to bring in additional expertise in the very near term. And I think that's really important. Now, these candidates will be selected by the steering committee and approved by the council by late September. They'll be able to attend the plenary in November, hopefully in Paris. And then ultimately really begin working in the working groups in the first part of the new year. So just really important that that I mention that at this stage. And the GPAI webpage will be soon updated with all the necessary information. But for those of you who've been working in the groups and have seen that, have come across some great experts that you'd like to self-nominate, please make sure you encourage them to do so. Alice, I think we're going to, we were going to start with you and get your thoughts on ideal partners and who you might want to recruit into the AI and pandemic response working group.
So we have a number of experts working with us already. Many are academics in fields in AI, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, biology, etc. Some are venture, or they work in venture companies, or they work in hospitals or other organizations related to drug discovery. We also have legal experts. I think we may actually invite or ask them to self-nominate some of the legal experts that we have, as well as some of the healthcare experts. I don't think I should be naming names here, but we do have them already working with us, and they've been adding expertise to our discussions. They've been directly writing the paper that we're writing together as kind of like a white paper for a set of recommendations, which will be one of our outputs this year. So we definitely have some candidates already, and you can expect to hear from them.
Right, fantastic. I think, Jean-Francois, you wanted to add something about recruitment of experts at this stage.
Well, absolutely, and we've been one of the group that probably leverage the largest amount of observers, especially in our intellectual property group, where they've been bringing a ton of value. And as I think GPAI is advancing in the execution of a lot of the projects, having the ability to source expertise with a very diverse pool of people that will self-nominate is very, very exciting, and I think will bring a ton of value. I think it's a great opportunity also for a lot of people that have good synergy with what GPAI is doing to get involved and to amplify the impact that they can have with what they do every day. So I think this is going to be a quite powerful mechanism, and I'm really looking forward to see the people who will be submitting their name, and new people that we're going to be collaborating with.
Yeah, and obviously, as we look for experts, look through the potential self-nominated experts. It's really important to be inclusive, especially in the area of, like, you're working on the initiative around SMEs, and we have to make sure that there's nobody left behind in this marvelous revolution that's happening. And as we look to expand the working groups, it's very important that we think about inclusivity and make sure that there's no group that's left behind, and that we get all perspectives that to participate. Let's see if any of the other panelists wanted to add anything about recruiting external expert. Matthias.
I want to raise another example of external collaborations, because in our working group, we thought when we were talking about the future of work, we should really also engage the future generation or the younger generation. And therefore, we have set up a student community, an international student community. At the first step, this will be students who are collaborating with the experts from our working group. They will help us to do the interviews in our project. But then we want to grow this community. I think for the students, it will be a very nice opportunity to get a global network of experts in the field of AI. And I think also for GPAI as a whole, it could be very interesting to have a global network of students, not only focused on the working group of future of work, but maybe this example could also spread towards the other working groups.
Fantastic. So are there any other comments on collaboration or the recruitment of additional experts before I go to some questions from the chat? Does anyone want to add anything else? Panelists?
I have.
Huey, please.
I have one. Yeah, just quick few seconds. Just wanted to really extend the warm welcome to those who are considering putting self-nominating as an expert. We're working with quite a number of experts, and we really need your voices. We're particularly interested in hearing more from those who are in the Global South, who have perspectives, and I'll tell you why, particularly for one project. The data justice project that we're trying to advance this research and practice is really a paradigm shift. We're trying to move away from just seeing data governance through this compliance or privacy or ethical design. There's just so many other elements of justice about representation, about economic rights, social rights, about people who are part of refugee groups. What rights do they have and how do they assert them, not just as an individual, but as a collective? First Nation groups. There's just so many different elements that really need to, as we pay forward toward a just future, this data elements is going to play a key role. And this is a place where we don't even have a very good vocabulary to talk about these issues. So if you are an expert in an area that can contribute to this, it's really important that we have both formally and informally, we a part of our network in this. So just wanted to plug that. It's an exciting place overall. And the Data Governance Working Group, as I mentioned, has been, at least in my experience, that's the group I've been working with, has been superbly organized, and you will find it a very productive and meaningful use of your time.
That's a really good pitch, Dewey. I think it is really important that, we have this opportunity as working groups to identify these really challenging questions and to look for the right experts to augment our capabilities and to ensure that we, as I said earlier, are looking out for all those who need protected. AI is this marvelous force of innovation and change, but it also can be, as if you've seen, pretty destructive if we're not careful. So identifying those key challenges up front, who's going to be impacted by what initiatives is really important, and generating global awareness around that is also important. So bringing in the best experts is really important. Okay, so we've got a couple questions in the chat. I think there's one that from Alex Engler, who wanted to ask if there's any reaction of the panelists to the EU-US Trade and Technology Council announcement And the question was, does that, in your view, affect GPAI's thinking or working at all? And for those of you who don't know, the TTC, as it's called, is a forum for the US and the European Union to coordinate approaches to global trade, economic, and technology issues, and deep and transatlantic economic relations based on shared democratic values. So I don't know if anybody has any comments on that for those who, for the question that's been asked in the chat. I think it might be too new.
Without knowing it specifically, I mean, I guess from a GPAI perspective, these types of agreements are quite positive, and I guess that we're a good forum to help extract best practices, learnings, and promote the use of these learnings across the different members, and that's really what GPAI is for. So I'm sure this agreement goes beyond AI, hopefully, but the point here is, we're a place where we can look at lesson learned and make sure we can amplify them so more can benefit from what's working.
Thank you. So the next question Wait, someone wanted to add. Dewey, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say I don't think GPAI claims exclusivity on collaboration, and the more collaborations of this type between allies, the better it is for the world, because there's a lot of issues to work through. And so I think in general, I mean, I'm somewhat repeating the last one, but I just wanted to note that the more people who are talking, the better, the more forums. There's so many pressing issues to work through. So it's quite exciting to see this Trade and Technology Council making some headway.
Yeah, that's a really powerful point. Generating global awareness and galvanizing, thought around these issues could not be more important at this time. So the more the merrier, I think, in that case. There was another question that was posed in the chat to Raja from Alejandro Pasanti, and it was his comments were, I don't think that the objective of providing governments with views on recommender systems in order for governments to be able to act will achieve more broadly desired goals. Co-regulation and governance beyond government capabilities is necessary. Content oversight boards or safety councils, etc., in some of the social media companies are an ongoing experiment that will spontaneously develop further. Can we tap into that trend and make it work more independently of the firms? It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question indeed. Actually, of course, we need a cooperation with the social media companies, and the main objective of this project is a fact-finding exercise. We want to detail how things happen, and this means that we want to go into the workings of the recommender systems, for example, and this cannot be done without the cooperation of the social media companies, at least those who would like to cooperate in that, to find out what's happening there. And the second, of course, the result is a set of guidelines and methods based on this fact-finding exercise that would inform an international consensus, in which, of course, the social media companies are involved, but also governments are involved to mandate this exercise. Which means that we are heading. I mean, our objective is to head to a formal agreement with selected social media companies and governments. Which leads me to try to answer the first question, actually, because specifically in this domain of social media, but it's also the case for climate change, without international cooperation and at the level of governments, but also at the level of those companies who are involved in developing systems that pertain to this, we cannot really progress. So an international agreement, I mean, between the United States and Europe provides a very good context for that. So I wanted to stress this fact, and of course would facilitate a lot this work.
Thank you, Raja. Those are really powerful points to make. The last question is, the Paris summit is not far away, the multi-stakeholder plenary in Paris. I guess I'd just ask each of the panelists rapid fire, what's your top priority between now and then?
Work.
Alice is smiling. Go first, Alice.
Yeah, so we have concrete outputs that we're working to deliver. We're working pretty hard on those deliverables. So for the pandemic response, we're working on a catalog. We had a catalog of pandemic response initiatives last year, but everybody knows the pandemic is moving very quickly, or we are moving very quickly to fight against the pandemic, and with the vaccine and everything, there's really a lot going on. A lot of good work, a lot of initiatives that are worth mentioning, that are worth studying, and try to deliver to globally to other parts of the world where they may need those initiatives. So that catalog is something that we're working very hard on. For the drug discovery project, we're working on a set of recommendations toward open science and data sharing. And this is really challenging. We are talking with a bunch of experts about how to best do this, but trying to get the governments, or trying to make recommendations to the governments to really encourage and motivate them to fund these really sometimes costly projects for drug discovery. It's not going to be easy, but we are thinking of creative ways to come up with these recommendations, just for public health, right? So we're trying to get these deliverables by the end of September, I hope, so that we can have them ready for the November summit.
Fantastic. Who else would like to? Matthias, how about you? What is between now and Paris? What are your top objectives? And we have a really short time frame, guys.
Yeah, it's not too long time. But besides all the technical work we are now doing and getting started at the moment, I think it's a lot about reaching out to other experts, because when we talk about collecting AI cases from firms, it is about conducting interviews with people in the companies. It's not so easy to get the right contacts in the company. So this is the first the first place where we are reaching out, and the other is to initiate this tripartite dialogue in order to get the principles for fair work with AI. And this also includes reaching out to experts and to unions and to international organizations. So I think a lot of our work will be concerned with getting out, making the right contacts, and and connecting to other people.
Fantastic. How about Jean-Francois?
Getting first version of our two project out so we can get feedback. Really, for us, it's going to be a critical to engage with SMEs on the portal that we're putting together, and collaboration with other organizations like we've mentioned before. And on the IP primer is to engage with organizations and get feedback to see if it's useful, if it's addressing their challenges, if it's clear, and what else we could add in there so we can increase the value. For us, it's all about racing to get something out as a good starting point so we can have a proper conversation with everybody else.
Fantastic. And Raja, how about you?
Well, we have the Paris Summit, but we have also COP26 in Glasgow in November. And
Yes.
in the domain of climate change, we want to actually come up with an action-oriented roadmap on the intersections between responsible AI and climate action to be disseminated actually for the Paris Summit and ahead of the COP26 in Glasgow and presented there also. This would have, of course, make us work a lot until then to propose this action-oriented roadmap, and also proposals for capacity building to tackle climate change using AI. Also, benefits and risks have to be analyzed in this case. So that's one point which is really attracting our effort. And about the social media, I mentioned already this work on the fact-finding exercise that we have to define carefully. So, and presented at the Paris Summit.
Fantastic. And lastly, Dewey, nothing like a deadline to move things along, I suppose.
No, it's true. We have two very large mountains to climb very quickly. These mountains haven't been climbed before. They require us to do literature reviews. They require us to collect data, to do surveys, drive consensus, ask questions on very important areas where we haven't seen this consensus before. So this is essential. So climbing these mountains not only is a task that is rewarding just to climb it, but once we get to the top, we hope to have a view that we haven't seen before. And that clear view of the future horizon at the top of that mountain will be particularly helpful in this stage and will chart our plan going forward.
Thank you, Dewey. And thank you all the panelists. I mean, clearly there's enormous amount of momentum and progress. You know, you wouldn't have thought a year ago that you'd be able to accomplish so much in your working groups. And, you know, there's an incredible amount of dedication and hard work that's gone into this. And the momentum speaks for itself. It's a really powerful presentation. It's been great to hear it in your own words and to hear you speak on behalf of your working group. And this is the first opportunity publicly to share some of that momentum. So I just want to thank you all for that. And I wanted to say to all of those listening to the live stream, if you'd like to learn more about GPAI and the work plan and the projects that have been discussed today, you can go to gpai.ai. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan, my co-chair.
Thank you very much, Joanna. And I just want to conclude with 4 points. The first, obviously, to thank the panelists for your hard work for today, for sharing with us the momentum, the early fruits of your labor and the work to come over the next several months. And really one takeaway for me and hopefully others as well is the importance of partnerships, of really building those collaborations across disciplines, across a variety of stakeholders, and the value that provides in climbing the mountain and hopefully seeing a new view that we haven't seen before. I thought that was a great analogy. The second point I wanted to make is just to say to the public here, these experts are doing this in addition to their day jobs. So it's an extraordinary commitment and dedication to the public interest in seeing how we can move and really seize the opportunities of AI, but doing it in a way that builds public trust. And I think that common objective is so important that it has driven very busy and very successful people in their domains to come together in this way, which I think is very inspiring and hopefully will inspire many of you who aren't maybe yet involved to find ways of reaching out and collaborating with us and with the working groups on the projects that have been outlined today. I also wanted to say a huge thank you to the Center of Expertise in Montreal, to Jacques Rajotte and Mathieu Marcotte and their whole team there for assembling the video and for bringing us together in the way that we have. It's a real pleasure to work with you. And I know the Center of Expertise in Paris has been doing extraordinary work as well, supporting their working groups, and will be handing over the reins as chair to France later this year. But all to say, really looking forward to working with all of you. And finally, to Joanna, a real pleasure working with you and helping to guide the steering committee as we navigate these new and exciting projects. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jordan. I could only echo your words. You said it so well. I've come away from today, with this renewed sense of hope that the positive impact that's being made and like with us collaborating on a global scale, and taking action internationally to ensure that the AI that we're building is responsible and is for the benefit of all. It could not be more important at this moment in time. So I want to thank everyone for your participation today. I want to thank all those who worked so hard to put this public face to all these fantastic projects today. And also thank the working groups for, as you say, their dedication and time outside of their day jobs to work on these important challenges and to really elevate the global conversation, awareness, and implementation of good policies and for responsible AI. So with that, we look forward to the next event in Paris in November 11th and 12th. Can't wait. And I will leave the closing words for our rendezvous today to the Honorable Cedric O, French Minister of State for Digital Transition and Electronic Communications. Minister O, à vous.
Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to take the floor in front of you with my Canadian colleagues. And I won't be long, but I wanted to share with you a few remarks on the work that has been implemented. At first, I want to thank all the participants, but especially the Canadian presidency, for the tremendous work that has been implemented so far. The preliminary results that we have seen from the GPAI are really promising in terms of implementation and in terms of a common approach between like-minded countries. Second, we have to solve and to be able to answer to a few challenges that we have ahead of us. How do we settle, how do we install the work of the GPAI within the ongoing discussion that are at stake among like-minded countries, among democracies, but also worldwide in terms of how do we regulate technology. This is a huge economical, technological, but also democratic challenge. We have to be able to answer to our citizens, to our people, on what is the technology that we want, what is the idea and the notion of progress that we want, what is the future that we are shaping that has a technological basis, but that shall ensure a human-centric and a democratic approach. We have to be able to discuss that. We have to be able to discuss that between experts and political leaders. We have to be able to discuss that between countries and especially democratic countries. There is a question that we have to be able to answer, which is the scope of the GPAI. What are the new countries that are due to enter the governance of the GPAI? I do believe that we need to be able to work on two legs. The first one is to keep on with like-minded countries. If we want to be able to design a regulation, then we need to be able to have that human-centric approach that we share among us. We have differences, but we share a balance between innovation and regulation. The second pillar that we have to be able to work on is to be assured that we have intercultural approach. We shall not focus on European or Western countries. We have to be able to talk with African countries. We have to be able to onboard Asian countries that share the same democratic principles, but that could give us a different point of view on a lot of principles that we want to design. This is what we have on the table for the coming months and the coming years, I think. And we bear a common responsibility, which is to design the future that we want. As you know, France is the incoming presidency, so I will be happy to welcome you on November 11 and 12 for a debate that we are sure will go on for the coming years. See you soon.